47th shloka of chapter 2, Shri Krishna gives us a karma doctrine wherein he tells us that we only have a right to do our prescribed duties and we cannot desire the fruits of action. Further, Shri Krishna urges Arjuna to perform his duties with samabuddhi. This equanimity of mind or samabuddhi is called yoga. In the 52nd shloka, Shri Krishna tells Arjuna to move past moha kalilam, the quagmire of delusion caused by the conflicting statements given by different persons. Shri Krishna's instructions to Arjuna to become a perfect karma yogi continues in the 53rd and the subsequent slokas. Shruti vipratipanna te yada stasyati nishchala samadhavachala buddhihi tada yogamavapsyasi. Shruti vipratipanna te buddhi. Te buddhi, O Arjuna, your mind. Shruti. Shruti is what you hear. When your mind is totally confused, pratipanna, on account of hearing multiple conflicting versions given by different persons, yada samadau nischala achala stasyati. So, yada, when, stasyati is established. Established in what? Samadau. So, when your mind, after removing the confusion, when your mind is established in samadhi and it is nischala achala. Nischala, steadfast. Achala, immovable. So, when your mind is in dhyana, in divine consciousness, and it remains immovable, achala. See, achala, mountains are called achala. You have Himachala, Simachala. So, like a mountain, when your mind remains totally, it's not distracted, it is immovable and it is steadfast, nischala, tada yogam avapsyasi. Then you attain yoga. So our mind is totally confused because of the multiple versions, conflicting statements given by people about the pleasures and enjoyments of various lokas, and also about the elaborate rituals to attain materialistic pleasures, the elaborate rituals given in karma kanda. So, O Arjuna, get rid of all this confusion. And after that, when your mind is totally established in dhyana, when your mind is 100% devoted to Paramatma, it reaches a vairagya state wherein a person renounces all the pleasures of the materialistic world. Then the person reaches a yogic state wherein he is in union with Paramatma. So this steadfast, unchangeable, ecstatic concentration where one is in union with Paramatma is called yoga. Now when that yoga takes place, there is no ego. I am the doer. That feeling totally vanishes. So Arjuna also had been listening to conflicting statements because he was earlier told Krishna that if I were to go ahead with this battle, then I would kill my own relatives and I would go to Narakaloka. So Shri Krishna urges Arjuna to get rid of all this confusion. Through this sloka, Shri Krishna makes it clear that if you need to move forward in spirituality, you must get rid of the confusion in your mind. Because a hand that shakes cannot shoot the target. Neither can a hand that shakes pass the thread through the needle. Likewise, a mind that is confused, a mind that is fragmented and distracted, it cannot enter the Atmic plane. Arjuna uvacha sthitaprajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthitadih kim prabhasheta kimasit vrajeta kim. Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna speaks, Keshava, O Keshava, samadhistasya sthitaprajnasya ka bhasha. Ka bhasha paribhasha. What is the definition of sthitaprajna? Sthitaprajna, a person who is in samadhi, a person who is in a state of samadhi, deep meditation, and he has attained Paramatma. So Arjuna gets curious to know what is the definition of a perfect karma yogi. So he is asking, what is the paribhasha of a sthitaprajna? Sthitadihi kim prabhashet, kim asit, kim vrajet. So further he is asking, what are the activities of this sthitadihi? Sthitadihi, one who has a steadfast mind. So how does he prabhashet, how does he speak? Kim asit, how does he sit? Kim vrajet, how does he stand? So Arjuna is curious, he wants to know about the day-to-day activities of a Sthithapragya. So Arjuna addresses Krishna as Keshava. Ka a Isha va. So Ka is Brahma, A is Vishnu, Isha Shiva, and Va is Vapu or Swarupa. So the Swarupa of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, that is Keshava. So only Keshava, the all-powerful, can answer this question. So Arjuna poses this question addressing Krishna as Keshava. So this Siddha Purusha, this Sthithapragya, how does he speak? How does he stand? What are his activities? What is the definition of a Sthithapragya? Sthithapragya is no ordinary person. So how does he conduct himself? Arjuna is very curious to know, and he poses this question to Krishna. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Parthamanogataan Atmanyevatmana Tushta Sthithaprajnastadochyate. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Lord Krishna replies to Arjuna's question, Partha, Yada Manogatan Sarvan Kaman Prajahati. Jahati is give up. Prajahati, thoroughly give up. So, Partha, Yada, when Manogatan Sarvan Kaman. Kaman is desire. So, all desires in the mind, Manogatan, in the mind, all desires in the mind are thoroughly given up. And Atmana eva Atmani Tushtaha. Atmana is that purified mind. So, Atmani Tushtaha, the mind dwells, that purified mind dwells on the Atma, and Tushtaha, it is satisfied, it is an absolute supreme bliss by dwelling on the Atma. Tada Sthithapragyaha Uchyate. Then you call that enlightened person as Sthithapragyaha. So, what are the qualities? What is the lakshanam of a Sthithapragya? Number one, Shri Krishna tells that he must give up all his desires. He is that person who has given up all his desires in the mind, and his mind dwells only on the Atma, and it gets satisfaction. Now, desires are of different types. The desires that are not so apparent but remain in the subconscious mind, they are called vasana. So the man reaches a state where he feels, I need to have these things. This situation is called spriha. The third situation is that where a man gets anxious to get what he wants, and he also wants to avoid what he doesn't want. So there is a deep itcha, a desire to get hook or crook, he wants to get what he wants. So this is called trishna or greed. So this is an explicit and ugly form of kama or desire. So Shri Krishna says that the mind needs to be fixed on the Paramatma. Because when you all the desires originate only in the mind, and therefore when the mind is fixed on the Paramatma, maybe that is one way to get rid of desires. So Sthithapragya is a person whose mind is free of desires. To emphasize this, the Lord uses a very strong word, prajahati. Jahati is give up. Prajahati, thoroughly give up. Because even if you have a small desire left in mind, it sprouts and it grows. Because you say that wants are insatiable. If one want is satisfied, another one crops up. So a small desire can pollute. We've heard of stories in Puranas where a rishi is in total dhyana and Kamadeva is sent to shoot an arrow of desire and drive him out of the self state to a state of delusion or maya. So such is the power of desire. So for a Sthithapragya, there is no partly giving up of desire. Prajahati, 100% renouncement of desire is what is required. So having cast all the desires, the purified mind dwells on the Atma, which is the very source of bliss. And therefore by focusing on the Atma, the Sthithapragya is Tushtaha. He is happy. He gets fullness of joy. There is no need to go searching for that bliss outside. It is very much within us. Yet birth after birth, in spite of repeated disappointments and failures, man's quest for desire continues. Such is the power of Maya or delusion. Now, when a man has reached a certain level of maturity, he is able to use his discriminative intellect and clear his mind of all the desires, of all the dust and garbage that has gathered in his mind, and then he is able to look inward and find the happiness. Now, if you take a mirror, for instance, when the dust in the mirror is cleared, then you are able to see the true reflection, your face. Likewise, the Atma is revealed to that person when he or she is free of desires. दुःखेष्वनुद्विग्नमनः सुखेषु विगतस्पृहः वीतरागभयक्रोधः स्थितधीः मुनिरुच्यते. Dukkeshu anuvigna manaha. So that mind which doesn't despair when faced with sorrow. Sukeshu vigatasprihaha. Neither does it show interest when faced with a happy situation. Vitaraga bhaya krodaha. Raga is desire, bhaya is fear, krodha is anger. So a mind which is free of desire, fear or anger. Sthitadihi muniruchyate. So that person who has this sthitadihi, dihi is mind, sthitadihi a mind which is steadfast. So the person with this steadfast mind, with this sthitadihi is a muni. Muni is sage. So in the 55th sloka, Shri Krishna tells that a person who is free of desires and a person whose pure mind dwells on the Atma and finds supreme happiness in it is a Sthithapragya. Now, in continuation of the description of the Lakshanam, of the qualities of a Sthithapragya, Shri Krishna further elaborates and he tells that a person who is calm, who is not troubled by sorrows or calamities, he is not overjoyed, he does not jump in elation when faced with a favorable event. So, that person is a Sthithapragya. Now, pain and pleasure are emotional reactions that happens in the external world. The Atma is above the mind. Both pain and pleasure are caused by the contact of mind with the external objects. So when the mind perceives an object as desirable, then there is pleasure. Likewise, when the mind perceives an object as undesirable, then there is pain. But a Sthithapragya, he dwells on the Atma. So therefore, he is very much above all this. So in this shloka, Shri Krishna makes it clear that one needs to be calm and equanimous. Now, how do you develop such a mind? Maybe by adapting a deliberation process, maybe by telling repeatedly to ourselves that favorable and unfavorable events are only temporary. Eventually, they would pass. So therefore, by repeatedly telling us this, maybe one could develop a calm and you can be calm and composed. Now, a Sthithapragya is also free from emotions like fear, anger. Now, fear and hatred, anger, all these emotions erupt only when you look at another person as someone different. But when you see nothing but the indivisible Satchidananda and everything, then one perceives no threat, no fear and no anger. So, such state of calmness and equanimity defines a Sthithapragya. यः सर्वत्रानभिस्नेहः तत्तत्प्राप्य शुभाशुभं नाभिनन्दति न द्वेष्टि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. यः सर्वत्र अनभिस्नेहः. So sneha, attachment. So that person who is in all situations, in all conditions, anabhisneha. He is not attached. He is totally unattached in all situations or conditions. Shubham ashubham prapya na abhinandati na dveshti. So after getting favorable, after attaining good or bad or favorable or unfavorable situations, na abhinandati, he does not rejoice, na dveshti, neither does he get totally dejected when faced with an unfavorable situation. Tasya prajna pratishtita, that person's mind is steady and fixed. So in continuation, the Lord describes such an enlightened person's qualities, that is a Siddha Purusha's qualities, and he says that a Sthithapragya is indifferent to everything in the world. His attitude towards favorable and unfavorable, pleasant, unpleasant, Shubha, Ashubham is the same. Because pleasant, unpleasant, all these are only in the realm of Maya and not on the higher plane of Atma. Now we all know that the Sthithapragya is an Atmavan. Atmana Atmani eva tushtaha. That is, the mind dwells on the Atma and it is in supreme satisfaction. So since this Siddha Purusha's mind is always on the Atma and it is steady and fixed and remains immobile like a mountain, it is in perfect equanimity. Yada samharate chayam kurmonganiva sarvashah indriyani indriyartebhyah tasya prajna pratishtita. Kurmaha sarvashaha angani samharate iva. Kurmaha, tortoise. So So a tortoise, samharate is pull. A tortoise pulls inside all its organs from all directions. Likewise, yada ayam indriya artebhyaha indriyani. Indriyani sense organs. So, like how a tortoise pulls all the organs inside, all its limbs inside. Likewise, that person, yada, when a person, all indriyani, when he pulls all his senses from indriya artebhyaha, from materialistic objects, from sense objects. Tada tasya prajna pratishtita. Prajna is mind. Then that person's mind is steady. So when a person draws his senses from sense objects, that is materialistic objects, just as a tortoise draws its limbs from all directions, then the person's mind gets steady. So in this shloka, Shri Krishna emphasizes that to realize the Atma, control over senses is essential. When one pulls the senses from sense objects and focuses it on the Supreme, then a person's mind is steadfast. So the senses have an inherent nature to get attracted to everything. From a practical perspective also, to achieve something, one must have control over senses. So if you want to reduce weight, then food must not tempt you. So senses are like doors and windows. Even if one window is kept open, temptation peeps through it, and if a person succumbs to it, then all the efforts that he has put in to accomplish things, they go in vain. So let us underline this. Restraining the senses is the key to spirituality. So just as a tortoise tucks all its limbs inside, a Siddha Purusha withdraws all his senses inside, and after that he shuts all the doors and windows. The character of such a person who has control over his senses is clearly established. In the slokas we covered in today's video, we find that Sri Krishna, in reply to Arjuna's question, gives the paribhasha, the definition of a Sthithapragya. A Sthithapragya is a person who has renounced all his desires and whose mind derives satisfaction and bliss by dwelling on the Atma. He is not troubled by sorrows, neither does he hanker after pleasures. He remains indifferent to sorrow and happiness, and he is able to prevail over his emotions like fear, hatred, and anger. He is unattached and does not rejoice or hate when faced with favorable and unfavorable situations. Like a tortoise that pulls its limbs inside, a yogi also withdraws his senses from sense objects.